Hey everyone, this is Leland Bartlett with Ripboard Training Consulting coming back at you with another video. Today we're going to be looking at an event handler called onChange and within Excel. And what that does is it allows us to monitor cells or ranges of cells within a worksheet and automatically performs functions based on what we type in. It could be a calculation, it could be a sort, it can be a formatting like we're doing here. And we're going to be taking a look at how to automate that and make our worksheets more functionable. All right, guys, we're going to take a look at quite a few samples here of how this onChange event works. My goal really isn't to teach you the specific VBA, and I will put all the code that we go through down in the description so you can look at it and have it accessible if you like. It's really meant to expose you to this if you haven't used it before. If you are recording macros and you have some familiarity with VBA, you can use this function in the same way that I found it, and I really am excited to be able to use it. So the first thing you have to know is that the change events are on 3 levels. They do the application, the workbook, and the worksheet. And we're going to be looking at the worksheet because we're going to be looking at change within specific cells, and that has to be in the worksheet. So we're going to go into VBA, and we can do that through our developer tab by clicking on VBA over on the far left, or we can do VBA through the Alt F11, or you can, if you don't have a developer tab up, you can click on File, click on Options, go to Customize ribbon, and then click on Developer over here. Click OK, and your developer tab will be up there. Okay, once you're into your VBA environment, it looks somewhat like this. Make sure you're on the right workbook and then the right worksheet. I'm on Book 2, Sheet 1, double click on it, and it gives you this white open space on the right hand side with 2 column headings. One's General, the other one's Declarations. We're going to change General to Worksheet, and then over on the right side when you click in there, it gives you a list of all of the event handlers that you can use by default. It automatically picks Selection Change. That's not the one I want. I want Change, physical change, so I'm going to delete this one, and then it automatically builds the outline of the routine for us. So anything we type in here, it's going to recognize that it's a change in the worksheet and then try and execute this code that we do right. So it's as simple as typing in, for example, the target. What is the target? Target, well, let me start with a question. If target.address is equal to whatever range or cells, let's just use one cell, and we're going to say is equal to B5, then we just want to let us know that we're changing B5, so we'll put in a message box. And there we go. And this is a real quick demonstration. Then we flip back workbook, and if we go into cell B4 and we type in workbook, and then if we go to B5 and we type in, it comes up and says, yep, you changed cell B5, we're in cell C6. Nothing happens. So when we're in cell C5 on B5, I apologize, and we change something, it recognizes it and does whatever code we ask of it. Now, you don't have to have a specific region in general. It looks at the entire worksheet. So for example, in this example, we're going to take a look at the VBA of this worksheet, and then this is a worksheet change. And what I've said is that whatever the target is, change the font to this color and change the font size in the entire worksheet. So let's take a look at how that can be. So if I'm over here and I already have data, but let's say I'm going to change that, it automatically changes the color and the font as I type it in. But you're saying, well, what about way down here? This is the millionth row. Does it there too. How about way over here at the very end? And it does it there. So it monitors the entire thing. Very, very powerful. Most of the time, though, you're going to limit it to a region. Yeah, we mentioned it can do it in a range as well. So we're going to look here at this one range, and we have a small table here. And the code says if you're within the range A2 to B4, then give me a message box that we're in the range. And the idea is just to demonstrate this. You can put as much logic code and call other routines as you want. So it said A2 to B4. So if I'm in A2 and I change this, shoot, it's in the range. If I'm in B4, oops, gotta click that. If I'm in B4 and I change it, in the range, so you can tell that it's a again, you can confine the area that you want to range. You notice I typed in B9 or B8, nothing there. Same thing over here. I type in something there, there's no acknowledgement, but if I type in something in the range, it automatically pops it up. So again, just looking at that code, it just says intersection as a range. The intersection is defined as this. Then it says if it's not in the intersection, this coding I found very, it's like 8-0 means it's something. So if it's not in the intersection and does nothing, then do this. So it's like not means do. Kind of an interesting terminology. In this example, we're going to be looking at a criteria and then not just looking at the cell that we changed, but the one next to it. So if we look at the code here real quick and we look at the code, it says if it's column 2, this row equals target row. Then if the target doesn't equal 0 and if the target is greater than 100, then go to the next column, which happens to be C. The second column is B, the third column is C, and then it attaches this row and then changes the color of it. Else just do nothing. And that's kind of the code there real quick. So if we go into here and we say, okay, the quantity is 10, doesn't change anything. But if the quantity is 101, it does change something. If it's 100, it doesn't change anything. If it's 99, it doesn't change anything. If it's 200, so if it's higher than 200, it changes column C cell rather than the one that we type something in. Kind of a cool feature there. Again, the code for that is simply saying that take the range is C to this row, and this row equals the target row. That means whatever row your cursor's on, and then it tells it to change the value of it. So in this sample, it highlights things just in a different way, just to showing you different things that it can do. Is that I have the order date here, and it's from F2 to F20, and I have that defined. So if I come into an order date and I change it for whatever reason, it automatically highlights that row. So now I know that I have a change in that specific record, and it's in the order date by default. So if I change any of these, again, it highlights that particular row. And again, if I change anything over here, it doesn't do anything because I haven't defined that. Again, take a look at this code. And it's almost real simple. It just says if not intersect, if it's not intersect within this range, F2 to F20 is nothing. So if it's not nothing means it's something, then go ahead and change that row interior color to 15. So it's a real simple code to throw in there. This next one is real similar to that, and it's just simply changing a cell in here. And I like this one here because if you're done some editing, what's really cool is that as you change these, it only changes the ones that you edited or you changed. So it highlights those. Now what the benefit of this is that if you're doing a lot of changing of records and sometimes you want to verify or just print those out, you know that Excel has that ability with the filter to filter by color, and you can come down and just choose the ones that happen to be blue or whatever color it is, and you can double check your work and whatnot. There is one caveat to the way I have this set up, and let me just demonstrate that to you, is that if I come down here, notice it still changes it, so it doesn't know that those other records are empty. Not a big deal. Again, it's not perfect. The way I do things is that I get it working, and then you refine it as you go. You go, oh, maybe I could do this, this, and this, and then pretty soon you're pretty elaborate and you're doing some crazy stuff, which is fun sometimes. The positive thing about this code, even though it does still do things below the total record or the total table, is that it expands as the data expands because of the way this is set up. So we have a table, and we've defined the table as column. We have the table count. In other words, we know how many rows are in there. And so we say, hey, if it's within the table structure, go ahead and format it. So we have our target, we have E2 to E plus row count, which is the table count up here, and that way we know that we can go ahead and do our formatting. Now this final real quick sample is similar to the one we just saw where it selected multiples and highlighted them. But in this case, let's say you're doing some editing and you want to remember where you are. So you change it and it highlights it. So you notice that it removes the previous highlighting. It just simply acknowledges where you just were and it highlights it, and that way if you get up and walk away, for example, you know where you left off in your editing. The positive thing about this is that it does not go below the table. So in other words, we're able to limit that to the table size, and we did that through some easy coding. So I said target row, again I have my table parameter set up here, the number of rows is RC, and I said if the target row is less than the rows in the table, then proceed and go ahead and do that, and that's how I was able to prevent that. Now the other thing, two things that are in here that are really kind of cool is that if you call another routine, like I'm calling another routine that cleans up the formats of that particular column, now that causes change, and that change causes this to fire again, which causes this to fire again, which causes it to fire, and you can get into an endless loop. So to prevent that, you come in here and you say, okay, I'm going to make that event handler false when this is run. So before I go into it, I'm going to say, yeah, this is positive, my target is within my range. Then I'm going to turn off the event handler. I'm going to run my clean format. Then when it comes back, I'm going to turn that back on, and because it's still doing the if statement, it's going to go ahead and format that for me as required. So this application enable events is a neat little thing to know, and I ran across that and it came in handy in this particular incident. Okay, what actually got me onto the on change was this right here, is where I type in my aerobics information, and then I compare it to the goals that I have up here, and then if it hit them, I want them highlighted in green with, you know, different color font. And to do that initially, I had to create the button, and I kept thinking, well, shoot, it'd be nice if it would do it all by itself. So that's what I did, is I found the on change event, and then that way I can come down to the bottom of my workbooks as such, type in some data, and now nothing's happening, but I said on the third column in the specific column, fifth or seventh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, seventh column, and the last row, if there's data there in that particular cell that I'm going to type in right now, then go ahead and execute. And there it goes. It automatically executes, puts my data entry to the top, sorts it, highlights it in green if it meets the goals. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. Now the cool thing is, let's say I typed in this wrong, is that and then what I can do is then I can actually rerun it using the button. So that does work in that instance. Now just to show you the code with this, it does get a little complex because of the sorting and things like that in there, but let's go ahead and take a look at that. So let me go back up to the aerobics workbook and see how it works. So I have the dim last row is long, the last row in my workbook, so I found that through the Excel end. And then I said if the target row is greater than the last row, and I said -1, and the reason for that is because as soon as you're typing in 1, it automatically adds 1 to the table length. So I said, hey, it's got to be the next row down, so -1, and if it is, then go ahead and do this. Then I say call the highlight goal. The highlight goal is what does all the work, and see, you can call another routine. So come over here, and then I call my highlight goal. Now, this also is where I put an application enable events equals false, because as it highlights it, it changes it, and I don't want it to have it run continuously. So I have it run, and then when I get down to the end of the sub, I go ahead and turn it back on so that it can continue and do the rest of the things it's supposed to do in the aerobics, which is nothing, but still that way, next time it runs, the events will be monitored. My last one that I was using it for is that I built this spreadsheet for financing, and what it is, I have some certain variables, like 3 or 4 variables that are actually interrelated to each other but are run by separate routines. And I kept wondering, well, shoot, if I type in change the interest over here, then it's going to change things over there. And how can I do that? And that's by the on change event. So that I identified the cells that I am going to change and then the routines it needs to run. And I got into the highlighting thing, and I thought it'd be cool. So if this highlighting bothers you, I apologize. I started saying, oh, that'd be cool if you turned a certain color. And I even got to the point where I started thinking, well, I'm going to harmonize those colors so that they all change, and I'll know when the last one was changed. But anyway, that's here nor there. Let's take a look at the code for those, and we can go down to our refinance comparison. And that's why it's so much cluttered, because I just identified, I said if the target address is B5, and then I have my routine. That's the main thing that I wanted to do here. This is here nor there. This is just colors. And then I have my E10. If that gets changed, I call my subroutine. If I T, U, and V is in here, I call my subroutines. Now what I've done here is that I have 3 subroutines, and instead of calling them, 3, having to write them in and calling them independently from each of these, what I did is I went into my module and I called this routine call income subs, and that income subs simply calls these 3. That way I only had to call one routine from the worksheet, and then this one called the rest of them themselves. So that is really fundamentally the idea, is that you can get as complex, as simple as you want to, but the idea is that if you're not using it's a great tool to automate your worksheets and get things done for you rather than having to recreate things or to have to do things manually. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you found some value in it, and I hope that you look into it if you haven't already. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I hope this information presented was informative and helpful. As you probably can tell, I'm not a VBA expert, but I do dabble. And because I dabble, when I come across features which seem exciting and usable to me, I'm in high hopes they are for you as well. If you got this far, please give me a like. My focus in these videos is hopefully provide you with information to make whatever you are doing a little bit easier. If there's something you'd like me to cover, I hope you'll leave me a comment and subscribe so you can be notified the next time I post a video. Until then, cheers!